I'm just waiting for the signal. Whatever it is. And I will just share that the meeting, while we're all here today enjoying the meeting is live streamed as well as being recorded. Sometimes it's easy to forget. It's nice to share that with everyone. And Vivian, are you doing any introductions or am I doing all the introductions?
Introduce the librarians, teaching librarians.
Great.
Thank you. Do you want to be Liquor Master?
Great.
What you wanted to match to?
I will.
The higher or the
Down, but it has
So I'm going to
okay.
call the meeting to order at 7:05. It is Tuesday, January the 16th, 2024, and welcome to our open committee of the whole. The Board of Education acknowledges that we are on the traditional territories of the Comox First Nation. We would like to thank them for the privilege of living on their land and the gift of working with their children. Our agenda is before us tonight. We have 3 presentations. We're really excited about this tonight. And before I start, I just want to make sure, are we all good with where you're going to present from? Did we work out those?
Okay.
Yeah, that worked for you? All right. Okay, so first up, we have Lake Park Society. Michelle, do we need to adopt the agenda? I would. It didn't say it on here, so I didn't. But I can, sorry. Was there a trustee that would like to move adoption of the agenda?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great, thank you. Second. And thank you, Sarah Jane and Christy. All those in favor of adopting the agenda as presented? Thank you very much, that's carried. Now to the presentations. First up, we have Lake Park Society. We have Genevieve Burdett, Executive Director, and Stuart Higgs. Welcome. And we look forward to your presentation tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good evening, board trustees and staff. Thank you so much for having us. As you mentioned, my name is Genevieve. I'm the Executive Director of Lake Park Society.
And I'm Stuart Higgs. I am the Director of Education and Events at Lake Park Society. And I'm also a teacher with SD71, teaching on call.
Okay, is this working?
Josh, where do we point?
Good, we're good. Okay. So this evening, we're going to give you a brief overview of our school programs that we offer to SD71, show how they align with your strategic priorities, and hopefully inspire you to dream big about the future of outdoor and environmental learning in SD71. Before we begin, I'm going to give you a little bit, we have to do that way.
Just give me the intro. I think is
that over there?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Oh.
Okay, so just a little bit about ourselves first. Lake Park Society is a nonprofit social enterprise. We have the contract to manage Cumberland Lake Park Campground for the village of Cumberland. And then we reinvest any of our operating surplus back into the community and back into our mission, which is to create wonder and connection through outdoor experiences. Blanking what do I need to say next? What do I need to say next?
Emphasize our school programs.
Yeah. Okay, so the biggest thing that we do in terms of reinvesting our operating surplus, our biggest project every single year is the subsidized school programs that we offer. And by going through the schools, we're able to remove barriers and to work towards getting every single child in the Comox Valley through a deep, impactful outdoor and environmental learning program, at least in key grades. And to date, we've been doing this for 9 years now, and to date, we have provided over $50,000 in subsidies to SD71 classes. So Stuart's going to tell you guys a bit more about the school programs.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, do you want to keep managing the clicker since you've got the angle? So I thought I would just start off at a real ground level look at some of the programs that we offer in case you're not familiar with them. We have 3 key school programs. and we offer them in our short school program window season in May and June each year. So this is what we've been offering for the last few years, and we're gearing up again to offer them this coming spring. So the first is our Forest Friends program. It is a grade 1 oriented program, and it's based in the really enchanting trails and forests out at Lake Park on Comox Lake. And the focus for that program is nature connection, sensory awareness, ecological literacy, and just the forest ecosystem. So a super lovely day. Last year we ran 9 of these Forest Friend programs, and this season we've expanded our dates, and we're hoping we'll have at least 15 classes come and join us. And we've also expanded the subsidies that we're offering to SD71 classes, and so we're offering $4,500 to support grade 1 classes and attending this year. Jen, do you want to speak to the subsidies?
Yeah, so we'd love to be able to get every single grade 1 class through this program. At the moment, we can't afford to do that, so we offer this program and the subsidies on a first come, first serve basis, with priority given to certain groups like the K1 Indigenous Ed Little Bears program.
Thanks. And it's really hard to give a summary of what these programs are like, just in a couple of bullet points. So we threw in a few testimonials from teachers and participants over the years to give you a sense of what it's really like. And this is some feedback we got from Colleen Devlin, who's a Pollinge Park teacher. And Colleen shared that, "I love the depth of the content, the respectful First Nations components, the ties to the land and environmental stewardship. Thank you for this powerful learning day." But it's not just the grade 1s that get to have all the fun. We also have a grade 3 focus program, and this is sort of our flagship program. It's called Water Keepers, and it's based in our big Voyager-style canoes. So these are gigantic canoes, probably almost the width of this classroom, and we lash 2 of them together and can get an entire class in just these 2 canoes. So it's an amazing day. It's filled with observations and learning about the history, ecology, and the importance of the lake. One of the most profound moments for me in that program is we stop and listen to a recording of Andy Everson from the Comox First Nation reading The Legend of Quinish while we're floating in the lake, which is meltwater from Quinish, the Comox Glacier. But there's just so many observations and opportunities to share about all the hope-filled, community-led programs and projects that are happening around the Comox Lake that are building climate resilience and fostering ecosystem health. So really magical day. Jen, do you want to speak to the scale of this program?
Yeah, I think what's really important to note with this program is the scale of this program. So as I mentioned previously, all of our programs, we ran on a first come, first serve basis to a pretty big range of different grades. But what we found, it was often the same teachers and the same schools that were kind of getting all the spots. And accessibility and inclusivity is really important to our organization. So we decided to narrow the focus to only grade 3s and work on getting every single grade 3 student through this program. Last year, we were able to get 22 grade 3 classes through the program. And this year, we're hoping to get 30 grade 3 classes through the program. So we're doing 2, 3, 3, 4 splits and grade 3s. And we're not here today to ask for money, but in case you're curious, a matching contribution of, say, $10,000 would mean that every single grade 3 student would be guaranteed to get through this watershed Water Keepers program. You know, similar to your $10,000 investment in the grade 4 bike program.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So once again, we have another testimonial. This is from a teacher who attended the program last spring. Is anonymous feedback, but the teacher wrote, "This day was a highlight for the students' grade 3 year. Spending the entire day outside was so beneficial for their mental health and well-being. Paddling on Comox Lake is an experience they will never forget." I particularly like this testimonial as it makes this connection not only to the value of the kind of content and curricular connections of being out at the lake, but really the positive impact on mental health and well-being of students to have this day outside, and why it feels so important for us to reach across all students in the district. Finally, we have our third program, which is sort of a flexible catch-all. It's called our Floating Classroom, and it can be suitable for both elementary and secondary students. Really, anyone who doesn't fit nicely with the grade 1 or grade 3 programs can attend through this. It also uses our big Voyager-style canoes, and has meant that we've been able to reach some really interesting groups of learners. We've worked with multi-age distance groups through Partners in Education, PI, and also NIDES. We've worked with life skill students and other kind of inclusive ed programs. And every year we've been working with an amazing group of students and staff at Malazzi and other Indigenous ed programs to come out to the lake. One of my favorite programs was last spring, working with Sarah Dakin and the Lake Trail Life Skills students. We had an amazing time, and we have a testimonial from Sarah. After the program, she wrote, I support a group of students with complex needs, and some of my colleagues thought I was crazy taking my students canoeing. Only one of the 11 teenage students had ever been in a canoe before. Their smiles made this field trip one of the best experiences we've had this year. This day is a joyful memory we will talk about for years to come. So those are our kind of three programs: Forest Friends, Waterkeepers, and Floating Classroom. Before we switch gears here, I just want to share one more quick testimonial from Rachel Black, a local teacher who's come out with us many times. And Rachel writes, students were hooked from the moment we arrived until the day finished. Students expressed a sense of wonder and curiosity. They were thoroughly engaged and joyful. The content was aligned with curriculum and masterfully delivered. We're grateful to have this amazing resource available to our students. And Rachel's words feel like a good segue to just speak briefly about some of the pedagogy and values behind the programs that we've developed out of the lake. So I just want to quickly speak to kind of three aspects. All these pretty slides slowing us down. The first thing I want to touch on briefly is the fact that all of our programs are developed by BC certified teachers, and we work really hard to align them with BC curriculum. We've drawn on the expertise of a range of incredible local educators. We're particularly indebted to Tina Willard-Steffen and Renee Barron and Serena Allison, who I know are forces in this school district. And as teachers, we know that the experiential learning that happens at the lake is a really unique opportunity, and it gets to engage with these deep core curriculum components in the BC curriculum. And it offers really powerful invitations for inquiry and student-led learning, both before and after each visit. And I'm particularly excited with some collaborations with some librarians at the LRC, SD71 LRC, where we've been talking about ways to link existing LRC resource kits so that teachers attending can have a continuity of learning before and after their time at the lake. The second kind of pedagogy values piece I just want to touch on is that we're really oriented to Indigenous pedagogy and epistemology in our programs. Our programs are rooted in a really deep commitment to decolonized teaching and learning that works towards truth, reconciliation, and right relations by emphasizing Indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing and being. And we draw on this FINESC, First Peoples Principles of Learning document a lot in our work. But more meaningfully, we share the Indigenous knowledge in our programs with express permission from hereditary leadership, particularly Chief Woodlady Speck and folks at the Comox First Nation, as well as the SD71 Indigenous Ed staff. And we're really grateful for their mentorship and support in doing this work. And thirdly, last but not least, we're really coordinated with community. And so I know we're lucky in the Comox Valley to have such a rich network of other organizations doing this kind of work. We really believe that the kind of ambitious, place-based outdoor learning objectives in the BC curriculum and in SD71 strategic priorities is going to need community partnerships. And we're working super hard to be that community partner. We want to complement the work that's happening in our classrooms with high quality, financially accessible, locally tailored programming. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Jen.
All right, so just a quick summary then, because we gave you a lot of numbers. Last year, we provided full day programs to 38 different classes from 19 different schools in the district. 36 of those 38 classes received subsidies from us for a total of $15,000 in subsidies. And this spring, we're aiming to provide $20,000 in subsidies. Hopefully through Stuart's amazing presentation there, you've seen that we align with many of your strategic priorities. I know we've also been mentioned in the elementary annual report under the environmental stewardship goal several times. If you're curious about ways that you can support this program, it's simple things like helping mention us on social media or acknowledging us in your strategic plan, providing a letter of support when we apply for BC Gaming for this program. And then for teachers, I think the biggest barrier, you probably won't be surprised to hear, is busing costs, transportation costs. We've had classes that are unable to participate because of cost of busing, and many classes whose program was cut short or rescheduled due to busing. So definitely your assistance with transportation costs is something that I think the teachers could really use help with. Okay, looking ahead, we are currently working with the SD71 Indigenous Education Department to develop a cultural program using these Pacific Dancer canoes. We have 2 of these canoes. They're 600-pound canoes. They're beautiful. The goal is to develop a program for older grades, or one older grade, that will be part of the Indigenous Education Legacy Program. This project is ongoing. We have a meeting actually next week here with leaders from the Indigenous community, the local community, and Pentlatch families. And the goal is to pilot this program in the coming year. Looking ahead in a broader sense, sometimes it's nice to have examples from other places to help us dream big. And we were really inspired by Powell River. Their school district currently funds 2 visits to their outdoor learning center per class per year. And then they have a 3rd teacher-led visit with pre-developed curriculum. And they also cover all busing and transportation costs. Don't ask me how they done that. It's inspiring. Alrighty. Okay, so to conclude, I wanted to share this older but still relevant SD71 review of environmental and outdoor learning. In it, it asks, will we find the champion or champions that can lead us forward? And we believe that we are one of your champions, and we hope that you share this perspective too. We'd love to continue to collaborate with you, to continue to build environmental and outdoor learning programs that all students can experience across key grades. So with that, hopefully we came in under 15 minutes. Thank you so much for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions. I'll get to the last slide.
First off, I just want to thank you for the presentation and your patience in waiting for the opportunity that worked with our scheduling to be able to present. So thank you very much again for your patience. Just wondering if any of the trustees have a question or comment?
I could probably comment all day about it, because I've not only been down there when schools have been down there with my own kids, I've been down there recreating when school classes have been down there, and all of the programming down there is just so amazing. And I had an opportunity to be in the Connected Canoes through a different community of, what was it that you got, what was it called?
Yeah, it's Megan and Tina do another
and it was
program.
The experience like of being out there on the water when you're like learning and together. And I wasn't with like a group, like I wasn't with a team. I was like, we were all strangers in a boat. And by the end of it, we were like a team of people who were connecting with the water, connecting with that land, with the learning. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see that you guys are trying to do a little bit more here and supporting students in the district. Thanks.
I think that we need to see what Cathet's doing clearly, because that sounds pretty incredible to see what they've got going on there. Outside of that, just your commitment to work on the water in the climate that we have here that sometimes supports it and sometimes makes it challenging is so important. So thanks for championing our life source.
Yeah.
Great, well, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay. We don't usually get takers. But I always extend the opportunity, just make sure, you can stay. You might be, if you're working with the librarians, you might want to, you might want to do that, but if not, drive safe. Thank you for coming tonight.
Oh, I know, it's so cool.
I'm just going to let Josh.
Nice to meet you.
Vivian, would you like to?
Sure.
Thank you.
So I'd like to share with you that over the last decade or so, we've been reconsidering our libraries. They used to be places where we collected and took care of books. We still do that, but we also do a lot more in them. They're becoming learning commons, and what that means is bringing student agency and learning into the space. And our teacher librarians have been working hard around this topic for quite a while, and I've had the pleasure of joining them for some of their meetings and hearing about all of the engaging activities they're doing with students in their learning commons. And I know that they've been looking at more recent research around that, and they're going to share that with you today. So I'd love to introduce to you Lila Armstrong and Sarah Kuhl, two of our teacher librarians who are very engaging and with adults, with us, and with kids too. So thanks for being here.
We try. I love that.
And eventually we'll have a presentation.
I know, so it's just,
Theme of the night is struggles with stuff.
Okay, well, maybe we do a little anecdote. Stand up.
It's not a bad segue into the information technology sustainability presentation we're gonna have.
If I can get the slides to load, we're in.
okay, I just sent them. There, go.
We also have the old
I
fashioned.
just wonder if this is like a prelude to the technology presentation.
Right?
And
You do this on purpose.
purpose, Josh.
Groundwork for this.
A pre-ask, isn't it?
Right? I'm feeling it.
Got you,
Upgrade.
you know,
Yeah.
covered out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like we're fitting really into our professions, like super outdoorsy and like super librarian.
Although, you know, I see a connection because what we're talking about is learning in other contexts. So learning outdoors and learning in the library,
Yes,
these are
yes.
important things, right? Sure.
Good evening. My name is Lila Armstrong, and I'm a teacher librarian at Mark R. Isfeld Secondary.
And my name is Sarah Kuhl, and I'm a teacher librarian at Brooklyn Elementary and at NIDES. And we are very excited to be with you here tonight. Thank you for having us. We want to share with you our current practices and vision for Library Learning Commons in SD 71. We want to show you how we are proactive educational partners with you, district collaborators, committed to developing excellent inclusive programming that supports the needs of all of our students.
Sorry.
Okay, we've got slides too, okay. As you look at this slide, you'll see that the Library Learning Commons is a physical and virtual learning hub for the school. We would believe that the library is the heart of the school. And this ring shows the fundamental aspects of a high-quality library program. Students have access to diverse and inclusive reading materials. They have opportunities to explore and develop their expertise using multiple literacies. Students are engaged in the learning process through inquiry and project-based learning. They can learn to navigate technology and use it effectively, responsibly, and creatively. They learn about themselves as learners and grow as citizens. And they're immersed in a collaborative environment supported by a qualified teacher librarian. Information and resources are always available. All students have equal access to learn. The space is dynamic for many types of learning, and the Library Learning Commons is anchored in a philosophy of innovative thinking. This is what every student deserves. We want to show you some of what's happening in libraries across our district. These slides show different ways of engagement with teachers, with teacher librarians, collaboration around curriculum and core competencies that's happening. In our top slide, we see students working together on collaborative design challenges, breakout boxes, and play-based learning at École Pontledge Park. In the bottom slides, we talk of the Learning Resource Center. Schools rely heavily on kit loads from the Learning Resource Center. Over 6,000 kits a year are circulated across the district. This is a valuable resource. It is a great equalizer of all of our schools, regardless of their size and budgets. Everyone has equal access to high-quality resources. On top, we see Arden, we see computational thinking and applied design skills and technology at play. A class at my school, Brooklyn Elementary, built a city of kitty cat, which might be hard to understand, but there's a pool and an ice rink and a mayor to provide a real-world application for their Ozobot robots. We got to drive through the city. Students on Denman are immersed in loosely guided exploratory play with the Sphero Indie Kit. It's all good. At Lake Trail on top, students code with Ozobot robots, interact with the Indigenous Peoples Atlas of Canada, and bond with peers over board games. From 3D printing and coding to design thinking, students are free to consider where their learning can take them at Huband Elementary. On top at Mark Isfeld, students gathered to listen to speakers and Indigenous drummers, and then they went out and built drums for use around the school. And students at Highland dig into historical thinking with artifact boxes from the Canadian Museum of History. And lastly, students are engaged in applied design skills and technology at École Rob Road. Learning takes many forms in our library learning commons.
So we've seen what happens in a learning commons, but let's take a step behind the scenes. What guides the practice of teacher librarians? Teacher librarians in Canada use the professional standards created by Canadian school libraries. 5 main themes show the overarching goals of library learning commons in Canada. As a living document, new examples are of collaboration, learning, instructional design, and literacies are constantly being added and are visible for all to see and use for their own learning. These themes are facilitating collaborative engagement to cultivate and empower a community of learners, advancing the learning community to achieve school goals, cultivating effective instructional design to co-plan, teach, and assess learning, fostering literacies to empower lifelong learners, and designing learning environments to support participatory learning. This summer, the strands within these themes underwent a major revision to reflect areas that were underrepresented. Teacher librarians are learners themselves, first and foremost, but also educational leaders within their schools. The leading learning standards were created with continuous growth in mind. Created with 4 growth stages, TLs, teacher librarians, can use the continuum to monitor and improve their practice. The model acts as an accountability tool and as a goal-setting tool. TLs can use the growth stages to assess the progress of their school's growth towards a learning commons and see how others have reached the leading into the future level. As you can see, the language becomes more complex as you work up. The exemplars, or Seed in Action, on the website share practical examples to guide our growth. So this is an example from literacy leadership. Several strands that stand out for our work and growth in the district are shown here. We selected one from each theme. These examples highlight areas where we have some work to do with our connection to district plans and how a district-wide approach would be beneficial. By harnessing the knowledge and centralized role of TLs, we could provide immense support to district initiatives beyond what we already do. We would also like to deepen your understanding about the role of TLs in supporting teachers. As curriculum experts, media integration specialists, and information experts, we are ideally situated within schools to collaborate with teachers. Fundamentally, teacher librarians are curriculum support teachers and always have been. When you have a teacher librarian in an ongoing position, the ability to grow relationships with teachers creates trust, understanding, and deeper collaborative connections. A new strand that was added this summer is Indigenous ways of knowing, a national nod to the work we've already been doing in this district to create authentic, deep, and relevant Indigenous materials for our students. As literacy partners, TLs are at the forefront in literacies, and we want to be part in bigger conversations about developing our readers. Creating ongoing opportunities to collaborate will have lasting impacts. We are about collections and connections. Lastly, designing learning environments to ensure the well-being of students in our spaces is a critical piece in meeting the needs of all of our learners. These are just 5 examples that illustrate the specialized role of the teacher librarian and how connected we are to so many aspects of students. Everything that TLs do on the ground is connected to both district goals and our own professional standards. Our goal is to strengthen our connection to the district as partners in learning, supporting teachers, and to growing a community of educational excellence. The concentric circles show how well district goals are supported by teacher librarian professional standards and what it looks like in our schools. Let's look at the first district goal, educational excellence. optimizing innovative practices and learning opportunities. If we move out to the second circle, we'll see that it's supported by 3 teacher librarian standards: effective instructional design to co-plan, teach, and assess, advancing the learning community, and collaborative engagement to cultivate and empower a community of learners. If we continue on to what it looks like on the ground, we see collaboration between students, with teachers, within those groups together, professional development of ourselves and of our staffs, innovation in education, leadership, and connecting the school to the community and beyond. All of these circles and goals have overlap within each other, which just speaks to the deep connection teacher librarians have to all levels of learning in this district. This fall, Canadian School Libraries released a new and powerful support tool, an action-oriented document created to guide teacher librarians, inform district leaders and school administrators as to what is needed at a foundational level to allow for continuous innovation and growth in library learning commons. We appreciate the district's commitment to building a literacy and numeracy framework. Learning library commons need the same strong policy, robust funding, and equity considerations at a district level if we're going to meet the needs of our students at a leading level. Without a strong foundation, our growth towards the essential framework parts will be difficult. Equity in its many forms is a focus for all TLs in the district, and it is our intent to continue to apply an equity and diversity lens to our collections moving forward and practice. This evening, I will be talking about accessibility, UDL, Universal Design for Learning, differentiation, and staffing programs and resources. Universal design for learning relates to inclusion and differentiation, providing the tools that some need but are good for all. The school library is an inclusive place and the largest differentiated classroom in the school. The design of the physical and virtual spaces of the library should be accessible to all. Resources should be available in multiple formats and include accessibility features where appropriate. And learning opportunities should be designed to engage and empower all learners. Excuse me. I'm coughing and I lost my voice. The Library Learning Commons is a place where every student should feel safe and welcome and can see themselves in a book or learn about others, building empathy. While this sounds great in theory, the leap to practice is more difficult. Some schools have full-time TLs, some have part-time on a rolling schedule. Unfortunately, site priorities tend to take precedence over team goals. How can we create a district-wide structure so that all students have access to learning opportunities in the learning commons, and so all teachers can access their teacher librarian? How can we ensure that all students have access to the best materials when budgets are different? How can we work together to ensure that every student graduates with the information skills needed to thrive? On days when the library is only staffed with a library clerk or library tech, it becomes a service model instead of a high-end learning opportunity supported by an expert. The library should be a natural extension of every classroom where the teacher librarian is used to their capacity and not in a static service role.
This is the current staffing of teacher librarians in SD 71. The groups at the top are highlighting the libraries that have part-time teacher librarian staffing. You'll see some have 0.2, 0.4, 0.8. And so that they do not have a full-time teacher librarian throughout the week. And it's these schools that have largely seen the most TL turnover year to year. This adversely affects students and staff and erodes the value of the role of the teacher librarian, the library, and its programming. It takes time to build strong collaborative relationships and programming. At sites where there's been high turnover, teachers have shared with us that they are more reluctant to work on a new relationship with a new TL. So what changes might move us forward together? Best practice, we believe, would be to have a full-time teacher librarian at each site to maximize student and teacher support and to have consistency from year to year. It does take time to build strong collaborative relationships, but the fruit is worth the time. We realize this is all tied to budgets, but we believe this could possibly be addressed through creative solutions. We also believe in good governance and innovative leadership. This group of specialists is looking to develop strong district leadership connections. There are many ways to do this. One example that many districts have around Canada is a district lead teacher librarian who organizes professional development opportunities, spearheads initiatives to foster educational excellence, supports teacher librarians on site, and liaises with senior management. There are other options. We are a creative bunch, and we would love to explore them. Strong policies not only support programs, but ensure equitable collection management and quality instruction. Our district library policy is quite dated, over 20 years old, and this leads to misunderstandings about collection management, weeding, and puts us at risk of book challenges. As a group, we plan to make this a focus, but we do need district support to move forward. Finally, we would like to continue to grow our relationship with the district and engage in conversations on how best to support our learners. We are keen and open to suggestions. We want to share our successes, our challenges, and communicate about all we are doing in schools. We ask and wonder, how can we open the doors of the Library Learning Commons for you? How else can teacher librarians bring the district goals to life in our schools? We see this conversation and the future as an opportunity to build a strong partnership and move into a bright future together, because we believe we are better together. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I've met a librarian that hasn't been amazing.
Oh, that is wonderful.
And I say that honestly, and there's creativity and curiosity must be a requirement. I just, yeah.
Thank you for that.
Do any of the trustees have any questions or comments?
Yeah, we appreciate
Than me.
and sharing this little snippet of a story with us. Yeah, I felt really engaged. I think it's like, I don't know if you guys are like, I was just like, yeah, like, it was like I was told a story and I just loved it. So I appreciate you coming in. And I love the delivery, and it's lots to look at and think about. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing your time with us.
We are glad to be here.
I talk too much, but I have a naive question. That's all right.
It's a question.
I have to wait because I talk a lot. So my question is, the naive question that I have is, in these separated schedules for teacher librarians, does that mean that that space is sort of only accessible in when a teacher would be able to open it for their class to do something? Like, is half the time is Courtney Elementary's library then inaccessible at that time?
No, we are well staffed. We have strong library teams at our schools. We are staffed with clerks and teacher librarians. So the clerks are there through the week, and they are a wonderful group, very engaged with schools and classes. So they keep the libraries open and running on the days when we're not there. But there's no programming on days when a teacher librarian is there. Official curricular programming, I should say. So any collaborations that we are doing with teachers happens on the days when we happen to be there. So, for example, when I work at NIDES only one day a week, that is the only day I'm available to work with them on any of the projects that they might be working in their classes. So we kind of have to plan accordingly that way. Yes.
However, as you know, sometimes teacher schedules don't line up right with that day of project. It moves faster or moves slower. And so that's where if the teacher librarian isn't on site that day, you know, the collaboration opportunities are lost.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I was just curious.
On your second slide, one of the things that really jumped out to me was the open 24/7. And I was like, that sounds absolutely amazing. Are we actually doing that currently?
That was at 16, it got cut.
So this is something that we would like to look at as a concept for, like, say, our high schools, and are we making this to be a little bit more open up to the community, or is this to just our school community?
This was code. And what this means is that we have virtual library learning commons. So we have websites where students can access research or databases or school news or scheduling from home. So that even if they can't come into the physical library, they have virtual access to.
Able to show the nice.
Only if we can show his sound.
Are we allowed? Yeah. But the idea is that the library learning commons, yes, as you were talking about, has really developed in my lifetime, has moved from a place where we store books and we quietly visit. It's moved beyond a resource center, and now it's this dynamic learning environment where the furniture can be repurposed for all sorts of learning opportunities. Teachers come in, they're like, okay, we are doing, oh yes, this is virtual. Yes, I'm talking about that. But Beyond that, then is the virtual library learning commons, where students can come to our websites and they can learn about research skills, they can connect with other students and see things that are happening in the schools. I've developed such a site for NIDES because they do not have a physical library. And so that's a place where they can find resources for reading, they can find resources for creativity and tinkering and makerspace. And there's resources to support them in their learning. So there's things about research skills, organizing information, how to find good websites. And then I have a whole district connecting with district programming is another page on that as well. So the idea is to reach out, this learning commons idea is to reach out beyond the walls of the classroom so that they can always, when they think to themselves, I need to learn something, their first thought is, I'll check our library website. It's going to have something helpful for me.
I'm trying to be careful with my bias because I do spend a significant amount of my personal time with the teacher librarian. But I do want to just acknowledge the tremendous leadership that teacher librarians provide, often unseen, certainly unsung. And I think as we spent a weekend together as a team looking at our aspirations for the strategic plan, and really tonight, you've really underscored and amplified ways that teacher librarians as a community can really accelerate and amplify student learning. And we look forward to further conversations with you. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you very much.
Great job. Was the high five that superintendent was making a comment?
Thank you, and as well, you're welcome to stay. But it's
we understand the weather and it's 8:15, so it's but whatever you
stay, we'll be the first. I'm gonna stay.
right. Okay. All right.
Be the die hard.
So then next, Director of Conservation Technology, Josh Porter, moved to yet another maybe slide deck for something else.
I hope it loads tomorrow.
oh.
Look at that. Of course it was gonna work fine for me.
Yeah, he's got the updated.
We'll see if my clicker works. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm the Director of Technology, Josh Porter for the school district. And I was asked to come and present around the sustainability of our information technology systems in the district. So, got a few topics for us tonight, mainly around just sort of the broader picture in how our systems work, and then a little bit more into our broader planning on how we refresh hardware and some of the contingency pieces, such as our ongoing enrollment growth. That is a constant challenge. So for any user who's on our systems in the district, whether they're logging into our computers, into laptops, if they're connecting their own phone to our networks, they're bound to AP 140, which is our acceptable use policy for technology in the district. That covers everything from using it for proper use and not doing things nefariously, not going outside of sort of the learning use in the classroom, or for those of us in offices, using it for things beyond what we would want to do for our job. As well, this also covers things like bring your own device. So for me, I've got a phone here. If we bring in an iPad, or if a student brings in their laptop, wants to use it in the classroom, of course, if that's something that the teacher in the classroom is comfortable with and the school has set out policies around that, absolutely support that. We've been doing a lot of work on upgrading our wireless systems over the last couple of years here to make sure that we're providing the coverage and the speed available to handle this. I think, as we've probably seen in most of our elementaries, we don't have computer labs anymore. We've moved fully to carts or wireless devices. So our infrastructure has to support that. At the same time, we want to be able to support BYOD as well. As far as security, this is probably one of the things that keeps me and Sean Jones, our manager of IT, up at night. This is the fun, challenging world of security. And I think if you're watching the news, it's probably in the news almost weekly from some organization. Public entities tend to be a pretty big target. Unfortunately, school districts tend to be very high on the list. We're not a valuable target, but We tend to be an easier target because we are smaller teams trying to, sort of stretch things out a little bit. We're very lucky in BC though, because we've got what's called the next gen firewalls throughout all districts in BC. What that is they're, when I say next gen, they're essentially very modernized pieces of equipment. We have support from the Ministry of Education and Childcare. There's resources with the company we work with who provides those firewalls. So we've got some sort of best practices in place that we work with, do a lot of testing and training and modernizing. At the same time, we carry out our own testing and training. So we've got staff that are going through courses. We actually do the odd fish test on staff here and there. So if you've ever gotten an email and you think, hey, that might be a fish thing, it's got our logos in it, sometimes it's actually us sending a test. And if you click the link, it'll walk you through sort of a learning course around this is,
Don't do this.
you made a mistake, don't do this in the future.
Don't click.
Because that becomes a bad day for me.
Yeah.
But the idea is to just sort of keep that ongoing training and just test through the real life scenario. There are companies out there who, we work with IBM quite a bit, and they require their staff to be tested quite regularly. And if they fail, they actually get locked out of their systems until they can actually pass the tests and everything. So we're not quite that stringent on at the same time, when it comes to the classroom, we're doing some work with all of our grade 4 teachers, actually starting this week, and doing some digital literacy training. So this is things like responsible use, actually understanding the responsible use policy we talked about earlier, file management, proper password management. We picked grade 4 this year to do the start because this is sort of the start of intermediate. This is where all grade 4 students have to change their password every year. You can't use the simple generic one that we roll out through elementary. But the idea is to start building that skill set. So as they progress, they'll have some of these basic skills available to them. Next year, we'll probably move on to a different grade, do some different topics, and just try and carry on the theme. As far as safety, so sort of leading on from that grade 4 work, our systems, we automatically enforce safe search. And this is on whether you're on our guest network with a personal device or if you're on a district device in district. It is automatic safe search. So if you're on Bing or you're on Google, you'll always see that safe search. There's no way to bypass it. Our systems automatically force that. So the idea is to do everything we can using the tools available to us to minimize the opportunity for students and even staff to get into an area that is problematic, let's say. We have the Erase BC reporting tool. It's available in a lot of places. So we've got that linked on the district site, all school sites. We have it in the internal portal that when every browser loads up on a district device in district, it's one of the buttons that's front and center on there. So we try to make sure that that's prominent and it's an available tool for students and staff to use if needed. We do also do web filtering above and beyond. So as I said, safe search is forced earlier. We also have filtering through those next-gen firewalls. We get an update every hour through a subscription that basically gives us lists of inappropriate websites. So as fast as those things are discovered, and they have a lot of, essentially they have a lot of AI, which is a key theme we'll talk about in a bit, available to them. And it's learning these new sites and putting them on these lists. Sometimes it gets it wrong and we have to go in and make a change, but most of the time it actually is intended and works very well at keeping us from problematic sites as well. We do, as a last resort, also have monitoring tools for things like our Teams chat and email. So we have some criteria set up that will look for things like people sending out social insurance numbers, credit card numbers, looking for, again, using AI, actually looking for negative tone and things that look like they might be cyberbullying. So we actually get an alert if these things come through. They don't come through very often, and we can go look. One of the fun challenges in education is some of our communications actually look like they might be financial or might be, credit cards or SIMs or something like that, but typically they're not. Just the structure of what we're communicating and the data we're sending. So quite often we'll look at them, and usually they're fine. So we do have tools available to us to do that digging if we need. Getting into the refresh plan. So this is something, it's been around for a few years. 2013 is when we started building the scope around this. And when we talk about IT capital, this is everything IT. And there's not much these days that doesn't seem to touch an involvement from our department. This is everything from our servers in our data center, at the data center here, network, wireless, wired, projectors and interactive displays, right down to the iPads and laptops for the students and teachers of the district. So we work on essentially an 8-year planning model. So some of our gear is set to refresh every 4 years. And most of that is going to be the end user devices, laptops, workstations. That's a 25% per year refresh. So every 4 years, we should see new equipment going into the hands of students and staff. Most of our infrastructure is more of a 5, even sometimes a 6-year cycle. It tends to be more robust. We don't push it as much. It can actually last longer. And it's a pretty standard cycle. So we use actually an 8-year planning model that we built out years ago. It allows us to look further than that 4 and 5 year cycle so we can plan in the future. So one of the things we look at is growth. Particularly, that's a big topic for us as a district now. So this year, for example, we've looked at our enrollment numbers, and we're in the process of rolling out 5 more carts across a number of schools right now because the enrollment sort of hit that threshold where it said, yep, we need to put some more gear out. We also look at it from sort of an equity model. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get in here, but we do look at what's in the schools based on enrollment, based on student grades and such, and look at what we need to roll out to schools using that. And we're doing some future planning and some tweaks on how that's going to work. The other piece this does is it allows us to stay current. So if we're refreshing our gear every 4-ish years, that's making sure that we've got decent equipment in front of students and staff so that they're learning on proper technology. And as they go out into the real world, whether they're going to post-secondary, starting a business, or going to work somewhere, this is the gear they're going to see when they get there. They're not using old or stretched gear that we've got. We've been through those days. I think we've come a long way, and I think many school districts are beyond that now. One of the interesting challenges for us is things like PAC and school-funded technology, things where they write up grants. These really are one-time items, and we do not include these as a part of our capital refresh project. We don't consider them part of our ratio, which I'll talk about in the next slide, because it's gear that only had a one-time fund to it. There is no plan to future refresh it. So that inherently can be a challenge. We have to work with schools on, planning for these refreshes. Sometimes it doesn't go through. Sometimes we're able to do a partnership based on the enrollment changes. But it is not something that we typically look at, even though we are well aware. If you're curious, we have about 5,500 devices that are underneath our umbrella. So that's laptops, workstations that we typically work around on our refresh plan. If you look at our fleet of iPads, it's about 1,700 iPads in the district right now. So those primarily are outside of the scope of our refresh plan. So of course, as schools, buy gear and fund gear themselves, of course, it could lead to an inequity. We try to work with that a lot with the schools as well. And of course, any software, any maintenance, that's not considered in these one-time funds either. That's something that we do take on. Everything is essentially managed through our department. It makes it much simpler to handle such a large fleet, but it is something that has to be thought about as we're going through the process. So in the world of equity, we're looking at numbers. We aim for a 3-to-1 ratio, so 3 computers per 1 student. This is primarily student devices. So we're not looking at laptops that are in the classroom as far as for the teacher. We're not looking at the office machines or stuff here at the board office. This is primarily the student use gear that's at the school, excluding those one-time devices. So primarily iPads and such. Of course, all teachers in classrooms that are in an assignment are provided a laptop. That's been really beneficial over the last few years. I think the pandemic has really given us some benefits of a ton of short-term Pro-D at a very fast pace. But at the same time, the laptops are given flexibility because we know teachers work beyond just the classroom. We do also have a standard itemized list of what goes into a new classroom. So we've got lots of modulars going in. We've got a lot of all other spaces we've reactivated. Of course, we make sure Wi-Fi coverage is in there. There's always a teacher laptop because there's usually a teacher assignment associated. And then an interactive display, whether that's more currently we're using TVs, but primarily previously we had interactive projectors as well. Same functionality, just one's a TV, one's a projector overhead. The other thing about equity too is, like I was talking earlier, wireless network coverage. So this is a big thing. We're going through right now actually upgrading a bunch of schools in preparation to cover some of those, what we call dark spots or weak spots. And some of these are just common areas where students congregate between classes. It happens a lot in the secondaries. So we're doing some upgrades and coverage improvements there as well. Software is another interesting topic for us. We do run everything centrally. So basically all software in district on our gear is procured centrally through to us. The benefit that gives us is we can buy at volume, so we get the best bang for our buck. We can standardize. We look at it with a lens, including our teacher librarians. We have another representative group called the STARS, which I'll talk about in a bit. So we look at it from a bigger lens. And we also want to make sure that when students go out into the real world, same thing, they're using industry standard software. So that free piece of software off the shelf is not what they're going to use when they go to post-secondary, when they go to work in the graphic design industry or something like that. It also allows us to make sure that one school doesn't have a ton of fancy software and another school doesn't. We still sort of focus on that equity lens again. And there's a couple pieces of software up here. So Microsoft 365, I think everybody's pretty familiar with that these days, students and staff. It's what our email is on. It's what we're using for Teams and just basically our core systems these days. Brightspace LMS. So when NIDES became a provincial online learning school, this was part of the system that was required to be used there. We opted to license it for the whole district and make it available to every teacher who wants to use it. Previously, our previous LMS, we had the same scenario set up. So we said, let's go and keep consistent with one system. So that's where Brightspace LMS comes in. And we've had a lot of take up, particularly at secondary, getting used quite a bit. And it's ongoing growth. Same thing with My Education BC. This is a provincial system, but it is a piece of software we do pay and we do license. It is used obviously widely in our district. And then one of the other sort of key pieces that we have, and it is probably the biggest infrastructure server we have actually in the district compared to anything, is our portfolio server. So all of our student online portfolios, heavily used pictures, media, video, all kinds of stuff on there. It is probably, it's the one server that keeps us very busy these days. So as far as what gets on that list and apps we look at, so we have what's called a NAT vetting protocol in the district. This ensures that we look at things such as the terms of use, the privacy. We want to make sure it fits within the BC FOIPA legislation. As well, we want to look and say, do we have 5 other math apps, for example, that are doing this already? Do we need another one? Is this new one we've heard about better than these other ones? So we have what's called the approved apps list. It's quite extensive. It's got several hundred apps listed on it, which can be very overwhelming. But at the same time, we have what's called the recommended apps, which is sort of that pared down list. So if I'm a math teacher who's maybe new to the district, and I want to see what are the recommended math apps for use in this district, it's going to have those 3 or 5 recommended tools available. We do also do a review, so teachers will find new apps, or there's new things out there, as well as apps disappear over time. So we do a review every so many months and look at the new requests that have come in. We look at ones that need to go and just sort of working with the key educators in this. And we're making some improvements on this process this year to make sure we got numeracy, literacy, outdoor learning. Professional development is a big commitment for us as well. So as I was talking earlier, the STAR meeting, so this is the School Technology Application Reps. We renamed it this year. It includes teachers from K-12, so secondary and elementary. We bring them together about 5 times a year, and we basically learn anything to do with technology in the classroom. Recently, we've done some stuff around Book Creator, which is a new piece of software we've licensed. We have learning sessions. We'll bring in vendors to do their training as well. We'll also look at apps. We've been doing some work around the approved apps list most recently. We've got the grade 4 digital literacy sessions, as I was talking about earlier. Those are starting this week. We have a dinner series going this year as well. So the first one happened back in late fall. The next one's actually in a couple of weeks here, and its focus is around AI, which is a very exciting and nerve-wracking piece, almost as much as security for me. And then, of course, we have Brightspace LMS. We're doing ongoing training so that teachers who are wishing to adopt that, we've got training sessions available to them as well. A few feature events. You might have heard about these pieces in some of our news releases in previous years. We've done a lot of work with HackerGal. A little bit quieter on that front this year, but we are doing some work. We have the Minecraft Education Challenge. That is a big challenge that is underway right now and ends next month. And we go around and present some prizes it's usually reviewed by a committee, and then there's prizes that come from that, pizza parties and such. And then we have the CodeQuest Arcade, which is essentially we take over the gym at a school and bring in a few hundred students and roughly about 300 to 400 laptops. And these are projects that students work on throughout the year. And this is their opportunity to come together and present them. It's a really cool event. We've been in the media in previous years. Last year was the first one back post-pandemic, and it was extremely well attended. So we're very much looking forward to doing that again this year. Probably be at Lake Trail again, but it's a really good event. A lot of work goes into Learn 71. So learn71.ca is kind of our resource site, I guess you could say. It's a publicly accessible site. There are some pieces that, because of our licensing, we're limited to share. But we talk to many districts around the province. A lot of people use this. It has resources for curriculum, everything to do with running report cards in MyEd or math, numeracy, literacy, that kind of stuff. Our app information is on this site. It's also got parent-guardian resources. So we did a lot of work through the pandemic around resources parents could use at home. We've actually just recently modernized a lot of that, gone through and updated everything. So that stuff is available as well. And it's a collaborative approach. So we've got quite a team of educators involved in the background that are taking on their various specific areas to work and make sure the content is correct. So we do a lot of work to try and keep it up to date. There's always little bits and pieces here and there, but we've really put a focus on that over the last few years. So future considerations. What's coming up? What's on our radar? AI is a big one. I think I hate to say it, but it's flavor of the week, flavor of the year. I think if you look at where AI has come in the last 12 months and where it's going, there is no question we're using it in our jobs now. Our students are going to be using it in their education careers, their post-secondary, and guaranteed in their jobs. Doesn't matter what they're going to be doing. I had the pleasure of attending a conference in the fall, and actually one of the presenters there was with Shell Canada. And they've been using AI for a number of years around things like staffing, predictive elements on their resource usage. So it's here to stay. It's a fast-growing industry. I think also continued growth. So as a district, we keep enrollment growth. That's constantly a challenge for me. Our licensing is primarily based on our staff FTE and our student FTE. So the more we get there, the more money I'm going to be spending. At the same time, we also have software increases. So every vendor is always increasing, 2% a year or so. So there's those cost increases that we're dealing with as well. Equity, as I said earlier, we want to make sure that technology is equitable across the district. It gets the best value usage. We don't want to see stuff sitting, but at the same time, we want to make sure that no school is going without. And then lastly, security. That's a big piece. I think we've done a lot of work. We will continue to do a lot of work. We're doing what's called penetration testing right now internally. So we're just testing for holes in our network internally to see if there's any spots we need to do some work. And these are projects we do ongoing throughout the year and test various parts to make sure that we're not missing anything. We're a small team, don't always have eyes on everything, so might as well bring in the experts to help us out. That's all I've got. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions and nerd out if you want, but I know the weather's it's coming from what I've heard, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh. I think it's always important for us to see things that we don't always know about, or it's an integral part of the learning in our district, and it's one of those invisible things until something's not working well.
That's right. No news is good news.
Just wondering if any of the trustees have any questions or comments? Feeling nerdy? Okay, never mind.
Timing was just right.
Question or comment? I'll back up.
Well, I'll start with Matthew. But this is yours, and I really appreciate getting a much greater overview of the nature of the work that you and the team do. I do have one curiosity around the monitoring tools for chat and email. I think what you said is that there's monitoring for staff and students, but then it also sounded like a lot of the examples were more around like SIN numbers and credit cards and stuff. I'm wondering if there's any, ability first, because this is not my wheelhouse, but around monitoring for like inappropriate conversations that students have, and particularly like through email or social media to, adults. But I suppose between students as well. Not that students are emailing each other probably very often, but.
Not a ton. They tend to do the chat, Teams chat and such here and there. And the systems do send us alert. It'll say, sensitive information or something. So we look at financial data, but we do also look at potential around, it could be construed as cyberbullying or, something like that. We are limited that we can only look at the resources we control. So we don't look at social media, for example, because that is outside of our purview. But our email system, obviously, if you're bound by the acceptable use policies, that's a system that's owned by the district. Ultimately, you're just a user of it. So how you use it, whether you're a student or a staff or whatever, we do have some monitoring tools in place. And like I said earlier, we'll look at it. If we get an alert, we will act on it. Most of the time, it's actually a non-issue. It's been tagged inadvertently. The benefit about tools like AI coming along, it's giving much more accurate answers. So we're not getting we used to get incessant alerts all the time. We go look and be like, oh, it's this again. It's the same chat based on a project. If a student's working on, for example, a sexual health presentation or something like that, those would get flagged previously. They don't get flagged anymore. The system's able to see this is an educational project, and it's actually smart enough to learn from that. So yes, we do have that. We try not to be too policey about it either, right? So the nice thing is typically those tools, we don't have to use them until we've heard from a principal saying there's an issue we need to look for.
Well, thanks.
Christy?
Yeah, I was wondering, is there any means to be able to do any monitoring in those programs and systems that are outside that are utilizing the Wi-Fi and the internet where, we could be talking about, like we've all heard things about, pictures being sent through text and stuff like that. So is there any way to work within our systems, but they're not our programs, but they're through our Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. So then there's this level of responsibility and accountability. So do those exist yet, or?
Yeah, somewhat. So if you're on our network, so if you're connected to, like, let's say a student's connected to our networks and wants to try and use Netflix, that's blocked. They can't use it. Okay. If they decide to disconnect and use it on their own data plan or something, we don't have any control at that point.
Okay.
That is, you hope there's supervision in the classroom might catch that, but at lunchtime, really, is it a big deal? At the same time, those filters do look at, okay, they're going to social media. We do limit the speed at which things like Snapchat, Facebook work at. Okay. So we don't block them, but we make sure that all the educational functions and all of our infrastructure runs at top priority. And that other stuff just kind of says it gets the leftovers, essentially. There's a few tools that we do really throttle down. It's been proven that blocking it is usually, they're just going to disconnect and go do their own thing.
Right.
So we actually just limit the speed quite a bit. It doesn't come up a ton. Now, as far as monitoring what's going on things like Facebook and such, we're well out of our realm at that point. Okay. There are tools available that can do that stuff, but it's not something that we could take on at this time. So, but as a parent, there are tools available if they're curious to see. If you're curious, Google Alerts is one you can type in. You can set up an alert, put your name in, and it'll send you emails whenever your name pops up. Apparently, there's a superintendent in Eastern United States who's got my name, so I see his quite a bit. Nope, not me. Nope. So there are tools out there, and a lot of them are free, but it's definitely something that we don't really want to release at the same time.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you. Well, I had a follow-up.
Okay, thank you. So you had a follow-up?
Yeah, I was wondering with the PAC-funded technology seems to be this kind of a thing for us. And I was wondering what's not happening in our proper process where we're having, a PAC or a school wanting this initiative, like why hasn't that come to IT? Why hasn't that come, like what can we do to, you know what I mean? Again, the equity piece is really, yeah.
So the purchase typically does go through us. Okay. But as a district, we haven't gone down the path of saying we need to now make sure that this is part of that broader 3-to-1 ratio, for example, right? So if we're going to do that, there needs to be some structure changes in how we go about making that work. And maybe those grants need to be focused on other things instead of buying technology that could potentially cause an inequity between a school and another school.
For sure.
So that is a challenge. It's something that we're actually working on between looking at the growth numbers and sort of what our fleet size is at right now. That's something we're sort of working on putting a new model towards. And hopefully over the next little while, we can start the discussions and see down what path we can go for that. Because the ultimate thing is to make sure that it is equitable across the board, just like our software, which is an easy one.
Yeah.
So the devices in front of students, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah. So much.
All right, next item on our agenda is adjournment. Thank you, Shannon, seconder. Sarah Jane. Those in favor?